Morning. Coming to you live. My name is Imara, and this is Find Your Free. Okay, and we're coming to you live from the amazing city of São Paulo, Brazil. And I just wanted to talk a little bit today about, this idea of finding a safe haven or a place to go right now, especially as an American, where you can feel, just a sense of more stability, uh, be able to afford your cost of living, and really just feel a sense of safety that I know a lot of people aren't feeling in the United States right now, in particular, just based upon the cost of things. But just there's a number of things that are off with living in the U.S. right now, and I think it's important that we discuss them and discuss options for folks. And, for those of you who are new to this channel. I live in Sao Paulo with my two children. I am not new to living globally. Me and my children have been living in countries for as long as I can remember. I mean, I've been a mother almost 21 years now. And my daughter, when she turned one, we started moving offshore. We moved to Hawaii because just got tired of the rat race energy. I really just never was feeling the United States. I was always trying to figure out ways to make money online at that time. I've literally been working and having small businesses remotely since, 20 something years now. And I just didn't really vibe with the U.S. kind of culture. Never have. Not since I was a child, even. So for me, it was a no brainer to go somewhere like Hawaii, and that opened up a kind of a gateway for us to start going and living in different countries from there. I had already lived in Brazil by the time I became a mother. I had spent a lot of time. I had lived in Ghana, West Africa as well, and had traveled around the Caribbean and Mexico and different places. So I was a little bit traveled, and when my children came, especially my first child, it was just on and popping. Okay, but right now we've got so much going on, so much going on. I mean, I don't even know what that fiasco is overseas in Iran, but it's so much confusion around it. Every day is some different narrative they trying to spin about how they're beating those people down, and now they are allying more with the folks of Lebanon. The fighters. I won't mention every name, but the fighters in Lebanon, the fighters in Yemen, all of those people are coming together now to come up against the bullying so-called master power or superpower that is the U.S. government, right? Regime. And so there's a lot going on, and the world is just sick of the bullshit, to be honest with you. Um, and I know that a lot of you are wondering, what are my options? Where can I go so that I don't have to be in the belly of the beast right now? Because even though U.S. isn't being actually bombed or anything like that, it's just the spirit of what's happening. The fact that that government is actually being really, really disgusting to the actual citizens in the country, as well as going around and bullying nations all around the world. And it's just like, where can I go to not be associated with this energy? And I get it. Bonjour. I get it. I get it. I get it. So, I mean, for me, I would just say you really have to kind of know what your long term goals are, what your capacity to maintain yourself is, what costs of living you can afford, and really be clear about those things as you're choosing a so called safe haven. Because at the end of the day, we don't really know if there are any safe havens at this point, right? Because when we talk about world war, that can entail lots of different countries that weren't originally involved in anything having to jump in or feeling like they have to jump in on fighting on different aspects of the war just because their interests are at stake, right? So we don't know who might be jumping up in this thing and how it's going to spread, and whether it will spread to the part of the world that we live in, here in the Americas or what. But we do know that as American folks, that the government is going around and harassing all kinds of nations right now. So as some of you may know, they are also been down in Cuba just trying to take the life out of that particular island and government. I don't know what the problem is, but they just will not leave Cuba alone, right? I know that there's that Rubio guy, and he's got some kind of major chip on his shoulder about Cuba and the background of communism there. But at the end of the day, they're harassing Cuba. They are doing a lot of damage to the tourist industry, as well as still striking fishermen boats in the Caribbean, which is making it an unattractive place for people to visit. They're harassing them people on so many different levels down there. Me and my children lived in the Caribbean on and off for about 10 years before we moved to Brazil. And what a mess. I'm so glad we left when we did. But yeah, y'all, it's just really time to be thinking about what is an option. I personally, sometimes when I watch the videos of the people talking about how everything's changed in the US and people are losing their minds and nothing's ever going back to be the same, life is just so crazy. And it's interesting because while I feel that to be true, because I'm outside of the country, it doesn't feel very heavy to me. I feel for my people that are there. I feel for my folks that are going through it and are feeling despair around the state of things. And I feel really sad about what's going on in all of the really, really um, horrible actions that are being taken against other nations, especially, and against, folks in the U.S. But it's not as heavy because I'm outside. I'm outside. I'm living somewhere where there's a lot of peace, in the environment. So I can't really relate all the way, but I can relate to the concept of wanting to find a safer space and a safer place. I do think Brazil is a good option for those who are seeking somewhere. I know Brazil can be a little daunting for people. It's like they can relate to Costa Rica. They know that one, a lot of people will be speaking English in Costa Rica. They're good going to Mexico. Everybody be sweating Colombia and trying to go down there. But people don't really think about Brazil on the same level just because it's just Brazil has such a strong energy, but then it's also like a world of its own. And I think a lot of people just aren't sure, right? But I would definitely suggest it. We have a really good quality of life down here as of right now. The government has been really speaking up against some of the things that Big T has been doing in the White House. So who knows how things will go in the future because we know how vindictive that dude is. But for now, we have a great quality of life. The cost of living is pretty good. I mean, I live in the most expensive part of Brazil, basically. So if I could do this, I know other people could have a good life here too, with minimum, lower expense than you would have in the United States for sure. The food is real, so you can come here and have actual fresh fruit that's actually good and nourishing and not waxy and disgusting. Not to say you can't find those kind of things here, but that is not what's going to dominate. What you'll find are fresh whole foods everywhere. And a very less, they don't have this huge, not to say they don't manufacture, processed foods and stuff, but it's not a culture where it's all about processed foods. Like people eat real food here and fresh juice with meals, and you know what I mean? So it's just a different mentality and a different energy altogether. So I do feel like if you were looking for somewhere to go and you were thinking about staying in the Americas, but you wanted to branch out a little bit and not do some of the more common spots, Brazil is one to check out. Um, it is challenging without, certain language skills. You would have to try to get the Portuguese down. And that's just so that you could have a more robust social life. But overall, you can manage with basic Portuguese here. Okay, people will work with you. So yeah, there's some things that's a potential safe haven right here in Brazil. It is. And you hear the media talking down on it like it's some super dangerous country, which is total BS, total nonsense. Some of the cities you will experience some petty crime, but I feel 1,000 times safer here than I've ever felt in the United States, and that's even living, in California, in Central California, growing up down there. I never felt safe or good in that country. So yeah, total nonsense in terms of Brazil being this super dangerous place. Now, if you want to come and hang out in Rio de Janeiro and be out all night partying and stuff like that, yeah, you might run into some shit. You know, you might, but you just have to pick and choose where you're going and how you're moving, and just be smart. You know, basically. Um, some other safe havens, a lot of people seem to be really getting their lives, especially black folk, out in Kenya and Nairobi right now in particular. So as y'all know, certain really interesting people like Kelly's, the amazing musician Kelly's, she is based there and has businesses in Nairobi. There's a lot of folks I know, ES from My Wish My Command channel. You know, I don't know how many of you go back, but ES has been in the YouTube space for a long time, and she's dope. And she had recently moved to Nairobi from Ghana. Um, there's a young sister, Jasmine. I like her a lot, Jasmine Giselle. She is doing really well out in Nairobi, Kenya. So these are places, you know, Brazil, Kenya, that for brown folk, for melanated folks, might actually offer some kind of sense of solace and, you know, ability for you to kind of maneuver, do business, collaborate, you know, deal with people who are trustworthy and good to help you get things done. There's a lot of a big art scene. It's in both of these places. Sao Paulo has a huge art scene where I live, a creative scene, and so does Kenya. And not only just art, but what's really big there is that they have a lot of folks who are tech savvy, a lot of tech savviness. So if you wanted to build an app or you wanted anything you want to do, it just seems like it can come to be in Kenya, in Nairobi in particular. So I will be looking in that direction. There's some things about the government and, you know, the kind of sellout nature of that government that kind of rubs me wrong and turns me off, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't want to go and check it out one day. Um, Other places people seem to be thriving, melanated folks. We could say a lot of folks love South Africa. You know, a lot of us are still in Tanzania. I wouldn't be comfortable after what happened last year with all the killings, but you know, it is an option. A lot of folks still going to Ghana, to West Africa. And you know what I've been hearing the most about is melanated folks having and getting their whole lives out in Thailand and Vietnam. Now, for me, I'm like, I mean, that's cool. I love Thai food. Bad. I like pho a lot. I would have a good time there, but I just couldn't see. I know I could probably live in those regions, but I don't think it would thrill my spirit the way Brazil does, just because, you know, it's culture here. It's heck of black folk here. It's, you know, we're ingrained in the society and the culture. So I don't see myself really being deeply entrenched in those countries, but a lot of people like them a lot. And they like them, and they can also live, especially in Vietnam, at a pretty low cost, very low, and just find little teaching jobs to keep them going if they don't really have a lot of money coming online, right? So these are a couple of places that could be good zones for now as we watch and try to see, you know, what is really real, what's really going on in the US with all the madness, okay? So, all things to think about. Where are you going to go, not only to find peace of mind, but to actually not feel like you're a walking target? Because at the end of the day, if anything, I don't even see Iran and them trying to do nothing per se in the United States. If anything, it'll be full of false flags and the U.S. doing it because that's just their style. Them doing things in the U.S. to try to garner the mind, they're trying to gain the minds of the public and the support of the public. That is their style. That's what they do. Most of the attacks and things that have happened on U.S. soil have been done by the U.S. government. And so we have to get realistic about the type of absolute treachery that Gov, that is really a corporation, is really about. And for me, it's been interesting because it's been interesting seeing so many people waking up finally. My God, like everything everyone is talking about now, I've known about for like 30 years. I woke up, you know, young, early. That's why I wasn't into trying to raise my kids all entrenched in the system and the school system. And Then my daughter gets grown and it's like, okay, you got to go to college now. And I just stepped outside of everything. But I know, so for me, watching everyone wake up in these conversations that I've been having with a select few people over the last 30 years have now become mainstream conversations means that we're moving in a good direction, I think. But for now, for people who aren't, on board with all this, oh, we're going to stay and fight it out. It's like, stay and fight what out? Like the U.S. has to actually crumble, and Izzy and all of them, they have to go down. You're not going to be able to stop the demolition of those things. They're doing a controlled demolition. You can stay there and let the building fall on you, but that is a controlled demolition, okay? And at the end of the day, you're either going to stay and think you're fighting something or get out the way. It's as simple as that. I don't know what people are thinking about. Them empires have to go down. That empire has to go down. You're not going to be able to stop that. It's just time. Empires, they come and they go, okay? And the U.S. has been doing enough madness and dirt for all its hundreds of years of existence that it's time to go now, period. So, yeah, y'all, it's time to get on with it. I hope that everybody starts to wake up and figure out where they want to go. Check the video. I did talk about that earlier. There are some good places. Also, a last one I would say as a safe haven for now that I think is a good jump off spot is Albania. Not because I would be interested in much over there, but because it's somewhere you can go and get a good long um, visa up front that will give you time and buy you time to plan for next moves, okay? It's cheap there. It's not expensive, okay? And you can go and just post up and figure out your moves in a pretty relatively safe place. I don't think they've been warring or having much going on around that area for a minute now. So yeah, that's another one that I think could be good. That's in the Balkans in Europe. So yeah, it's good to be thinking about what is available, what is a possibility, and going forward because right now it's rough. Things are rough right now. If you are in the U.S. and you're thinking, that things are just going to go back to the way they were or whatever, I just don't see that happening. So, it's time to be looking at quality of life, okay? If you're interested in anything I've been talking about, or you think you want to come in this direction, or you want help planning in general, your escape with your family and what have you, I do consult, I do coaching, I help people lay out their plans, and I offer different tours and relocation tours here locally, okay? So I can help for those trying to move to Africa, Latin America, different parts, Caribbean, South America, I can support. All right, so hit me